What? Bang!
Whoa! Wrestling podcast. Just when they think they got the answers, I change the question.
Rep through rep.
Yeah!
Woo!
Who are you to doubt El Dan? Because this guy's a serious professional.
Can he do it?
Too hot to handle and too cold to hold. And I am the Macho King Savage.
Shut your mouth, you thong-wearing fatty. I said WWE stands for... It's me, Austin. I will never retire.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners. Welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. Are you sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling game? Stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create a wrestler, sign contracts, get into storylines, headline PLEs, even build your own corporation from the ground up. All included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users, totally free. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your name in the shout-outs like my good buddy John down in Texas. John, love giving you the shout-out. Make sure you pop over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today. We have loyalty rewards. If you are a $15 a month contributor, you get to co-host a show with myself. $7.50 a month contributors enter into a drawing to also host a show with me. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. If you cannot tell right away from the onset of the show, the demeanor, the tone of my voice, definitely more of a somber note today. The wrestling world is all kind of like rocking and reeling because of the news, the sad passing of one of the most iconic wrestlers in the history of professional wrestling, the immortal Hulk Hogan. For me, anybody who knows me, when I do this show, I usually have show notes, topics. I open a million tabs on my computers and talk about all the daily news and all that kind of stuff. Not today. Today is all about Hulk Hogan. Today is all about a guy who, wow, talk about a polarizing individual. Whether you're somebody who in 1984 were screaming to the rafters, popping, going, fanning out for the guy, or you're the guy in 2025 who has mixed emotions today because of some of the things that have happened in the last, say, 10 to 15 years of Hulk Hogan's life, he's somebody who really generates conversation and buzz on all ends of the spectrum. This episode of the show is going to be a little bit different from everything I usually do, because I don't usually, we've seen many wrestlers come and go in the time, unfortunately, and it's never a happy thing. It's always a very somber experience. But this one hit me a little bit differently. And I hope in this episode I'll be able to explain why. For me, as a wrestling fan, my fandom came from my dad introducing me to this sport. I was very young. I can remember going to the Philadelphia Spectrum. I was there the night that Superfly Jimmy Snuka was in the yellow T-shirt with the tassels hanging off it when he jumped the guardrail to help out the Tonga Kid against Roddy Piper and Cowboy Bob Orton. That was my first introduction to wrestling. I'll never forget that night leaving the Spectrum and watching some guy dressed up like Roddy Piper beat the living snot out of some guy walking out because he talked trash about Roddy Piper. I was drawn in immediately, but I didn't actually, that wasn't the first thing that really popped my attention. What popped my attention was, without going into detail, I had a family member who was in a hospital getting a procedure done. And while I was in the waiting room as a small child, my father and I were watching wrestling on the television at the hospital, and they had on January 23rd, 1984, this larger-than-life character, Hulk Hogan, challenging the Iron Sheik for the WWF at the time World Heavyweight Championship. Now, as a kid, I don't know anything about, I don't know the backstory. I don't know how we got there. I don't know who these people are. What I know is I'm watching this TV screen, no music, no entrance music, none of that real American stuff. And for those who are big Hogan fans know that wasn't even his first entrance song. The Tiger was before that, and he actually had some things in between. But just watching this larger-than-life character walk through the curtain and just explode. And the charisma, the personality, immediately it gripped you. You could not take your eyes off this guy. And then here's this Iron Sheik. Now, even as a little kid at the time, I'll never forget. Like, I didn't understand why he was wearing the outfit he was wearing. I was a little guy. I was born in '76. For anybody who knows anything about me, so obviously I'm very young at the time. I didn't understand what the Iron Sheik stood for. I didn't understand the geopolitical situation going on in the world at the time. I didn't understand any of that. What I knew was, here was the manager, classy Freddie Blassie, all flashy with this guy in this, like, looked like a giant bathrobe, which was ridiculous to me, going against this guy who, like, had huge muscles, and he just looked like, man, nobody could touch him. And I remember, I was confused. The match, if you go back and look at it, it's only like 5 minutes, 43 seconds long, something like that. When you go back and watch it, Hogan dominates for the majority of the match. She gets a little bit of offense in at one point, does a side suplex at one point, some shots, some chokes, kicks to the back and puts him into the camel clutch. And then that's where Hogan does the thing where he's pointing the fingers and he pulls him up and he, starts to stand up out of the camel clutch. And I remember hearing on commentary, I believe it was Gorilla Monsoon saying, once he got his knees up, he's like, that breaks the effect of the hold. And I remember he stood up and he backs the Sheik into the turnbuckle, falls on the ground, shakes it off, hits the ropes, and drops his leg and wins the WWF Heavyweight Championship. And they present him with the belt. And I just remember how special it was for me to see this guy celebrating with this green and gold belt. I always thought that was like the ugliest belt ever once I understood what was going on in the wrestling world. But in hindsight, at the moment when I saw it, I thought it was amazing. Then they did the interview afterwards, and I saw these people celebrating. It was like Andre the Giant and Gene Okerlund. One of the ones I thought was the funniest, they had Rocky Johnson and Ivan Putski were there, and I'll never forget them popping the top of the one bottle of champagne and pouring it down the tuxedo of Gene Okerlund. I thought it was so hilarious. They did stuff with his parents. His mother and father were there, and it was so real to me. Of course, as a child, first time really getting any kind of understanding of professional wrestling, I had no idea what a work was. I was so happy. I was sucked in. That was it. I became the huge wrestling fanatic that I am today because of Hulk Hogan. Now, look, I've been going around about this with people today, and I'm not going to. This is where maybe it's a blessing to have a podcast and not always have live interaction with other people, because I don't want to have a back and forth about this with people. I want people to understand my perspective. This is my perspective. I understand that everybody is influenced by somebody else. Hulk Hogan himself would often reference how Dusty Rhodes and Superstar Billy Graham were huge influences on him. I get that. But I need people to understand my thought process. We had Superstar Billy Graham. We had Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, Harley Race, Bruno Sammartino, one of the most successful draws in the history of professional wrestling. I'll even go down the line of Vern Gagne, who was on mainstream television for a while. Freddie Blassie, mainstream television. We had people who were at the top of the card in every major promotion around the world, and none of them, at any point in time, were able to do what Hulk Hogan did. Now, I understand. A lot of what Hulk Hogan did was manufactured through the promotional skills of Vince McMahon. I will never say that Hogan could have done it on his own without Vince, or that Vince could have done it without Hogan. Heck, there are stories out there about how Vince McMahon had Dusty Rhodes in mind to be Hulk Hogan, and that didn't work out. You can't convince me that had Dusty Rhodes left the NWA and gone to the WWF and Vince made him the rocket ship, that would have been sustainable. If for no other reason, look at Dusty Rhodes' creative genius that is who he became. He wouldn't have wanted to be in that spot for that long duration of time. Certainly not at that age. His body and the longevity that he had left. I mean, look at his career in the NWA. Let's see, Starrcade 87, I believe it is, when he beats Lex Luger for the United States Championship. Last major thing I think I remember him ever doing in terms of, like, in the NWA, going to WWE or WWF at the time. He had his feud with Ted DiBiase. He had a feud with the Macho Man Randy Savage. But the Big Boss Man. Beyond that, not a lot. Really not a lot. And then you're talking about like 1989, 1990, and that's pretty much it. Did he have a one-off here and there and show up in TNA for a little while? Some stuff at WCW towards the end with Ric Flair and David Flair and stuff like that? Of course he did. But Dusty Rhodes, I don't believe, had the longevity that Hulk Hogan, or would have had the longevity Hulk Hogan did. Now, back to Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan, for people who talk about how Hogan is just the byproduct of Vince McMahon, not the case. Vince couldn't have done what he did with Hogan with anybody else. It wasn't just about the body. It was about the charisma, the talking. It was about the real American language, the verbiage, the 80s where you've got a Cold War that was still very much alive in 1984. You've got the Iran-Contra scandal going on, and you've got this over-the-top red, white, and blue star-spangled babyface who is the poster boy for World Wrestling Federation at the time. And there is nobody who could have pulled that out. Even the music, again, starting out with Eye of the Tiger, and then transitioning eventually, you had a little bit of Cyndi Lauper influence for a little hot minute, and then going into the Real American, which, by the way, was originally made for Barry Windham and Mike Rotunda, the U.S. Express, and then they quickly realized that it was going to do better for Hulk Hogan. The song that he's become synonymous with wasn't even intended to be his, but it rounded out the package perfectly. And then you think about his career, you know, whether it's the before the big boom, wrestling people like Big John Studd, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, well, Brutus Beefcake at the time, still with Johnny Valentine, not the Barber yet. People like King Kong Bundy, Ken Patera. I was at the Spectrum. I saw him wrestle Terry Funk. I saw him wrestle adorable Adrian Adonis. Those feuds, though not the marquee ones you hear people talk about and reflect on when you reflect on Hulk Hogan's career, were just as important in building the base, the people who did not want to see Hogan lose. You get to WrestleMania 1. WrestleMania 1, obviously not a success without Hulk Hogan. I get it. Mainstream stars being added to the show helped put it over and garner a bigger audience, which is why it was as successful as it was. I get all that, but none of that happens without Hulk Hogan. You go to WrestleMania 2, you do this conglomerate crazy idea of 3 cities in one night, New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles, and Hulk Hogan wrestles in a steel cage against King Kong Bundy after having his ribs destroyed on Saturday night's main event by Bundy and Don Morocco and Bobby Heenan. And he's got, Hillbilly Jim in his corner. He's got the ribs all taped up and all this stuff. That was fantastic, and it started to really build Hogan's, what would eventually become his legacy. You get to WrestleMania 3, and it was really started to get on people's minds where, like, here's this guy, Andre the Giant, who they would claim was undefeated for 15 years, which for the people tuning into this show, if you're a diehard fan as long as I have been, you know as well as I do, Andre had lost many times. And you want to talk about maybe not losing battle royals. I've even seen him lose battle royals on Coliseum home video to Big John Studd when he and Hulk Hogan are both baby faces in 1984, 85-ish, and they're trying to put each other out, and Studd comes over and knocks them both out. So no matter what way you cut it, Andre was not undefeated in any way, shape, or form. They try to convince you with their own narrative that he was never body slammed, even though we've seen a million people do it, from Baba to Harley Race to Haku, who was King Tunga at the time, and stuff like that. But they built it up as if Andre was this unstoppable force who had not been defeated in 15 years versus Hulk Hogan, the guy who had been champion since January 1984. It was like the 3-year anniversary. They did a whole setup on Piper's Pit, the biggest talking platform in wrestling at the time, and probably the greatest of all time. You have Andre come out to receive a trophy for 15 years being undefeated. And, you shake, you have Hulk Hogan come out and shake and celebrate with him. You have Hulk Hogan come out to celebrate 3 years being world champion, also receiving a trophy. Hogan's trophy bigger than Andre's, the little things that they put into the storyline. You have, the next week, you have Roddy Piper and Jesse Ventura arguing over how Jesse thinks there's dissension between Hogan and Andre, leading to the following week, Jesse saying he'll produce Andre if Piper can produce Hogan. They bring Hogan out, they bring Andre out, and here comes Bobby Heenan with Andre the Giant, turning heel and issuing the challenge for WrestleMania 3, leading to one of the most iconic moments in wrestling history, the one that everybody always talks about, the body slam heard around the world, where he body slams Andre the Giant, hits the leg drop, and defeats Andre clean in the ring after what a lot of people would probably say was one of Andre's better matches. Really, quite frankly, I get it. When you're looking at people like Will Ospreay and Ricochet today, it's really difficult to say how wonderful a matches that Andre the Giant had. But when you understand the physical situation Andre was in, it was a great match for Andre. Hogan looked solid in the match. They did a lot inside the ring, outside of the ring. And the lore of the fact that Hogan didn't know if Andre was going to let him win and things of that nature, it just added to the mystique of the match we all found out about later. The size of the audience, 93,173 people, if I remember that number off the top of my head. That's how much of a junkie I am, trying to remember all this stuff off the top of my head. Was just a spectacle in the Pontiac Silverdome in Michigan. You go from that, you go into the summertime. You see where there's some teasing. He had a feud with Randy Savage, which was interesting and clearly was laying the groundwork for the future. Then after Savage turned babyface, You see Savage being attacked by the Honky Tonk Man and the Hart Foundation. Elizabeth going to get help and bringing Hogan out, and it's the first time you see the union of Hogan and Savage as the Mega Powers. Leading up to WrestleMania 4, you get to WrestleMania 4, where Ted DiBiase tried at the main event, not Saturday night's main event. Many people get that wrong. February 5th, 1988. I remember that date very clearly. It was a Friday night. They did the main event, Hogan versus Andre, the rematch. Prior to that, I jumped over the fact that first Survivor Series, where Andre the Giant was the sole survivor over Hulk Hogan's team. That's a big deal. You got to WrestleMania 4. Hogan and Andre get a bye in the first round of a tournament to crown a new world champion because of the vacating the title, because of selling the title to DiBiase after Andre controversially beat Hogan with the referee counting a pin even though Hogan's shoulders were up because it was two referees. And for you diehards, you know everything I'm talking about. But you have to think about each one of these things as you go through Hogan's career to understand why I have the perspective I do on his untimely passing. You go through WrestleMania 4, you crown Macho Man, you solidify the Mega Powers, you go into SummerSlam, first ever SummerSlam, Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks, where you see the seeds planted for dissension in the Mega Powers when Hogan hoists Miss Elizabeth up on Savage's shoulder, gives her a hug and things like that, and she's standing there in her red underwear with a gold blouse and whatnot, and it was controversial at the time. You get to the next Survivor Series, again, dissension with Hogan and Savage over Elizabeth. You get to the Mega Powers Explode on Saturday night's main event the following year, leading to WrestleMania 5 versus Savage in Trump Plaza for the second year in a row. And like as you go through the years, WrestleMania 6 comes around and you've got, the Ultimate Warrior, the Intercontinental Champion facing Hulk Hogan, the World Champion. You have that huge match where Hogan puts the Warrior over clean in the middle of the ring. And it's clear, if you watch the video, how the fans were just in awe of Hogan, shocked when he lost, and the Warrior never stuck. You take the title off Warrior, put it on Sergeant Slaughter, WrestleMania 7. You need an All-American to come in and take it from this Iraqi sympathizer, who better than Hulk Hogan. He comes in, regains the championship at WrestleMania 7. He goes to the match at SummerSlam, the match made in hell, teaming with the Warrior with Sid Justice as the referee against the Three Faces of Fear. You see him win that match, and as you just keep progressing, you get all the way to WrestleMania 8. Actually, technically, you get to Survivor Series, Ric Flair coming in, costing him the World Championship against The Undertaker, rematch Tuesday in Texas, controversial finish when he regains the title, stripped of the title, undisputed, the championship being put on the line at the Royal Rumble, being eliminated a third from the end. He's a third place finisher. Sid Justice throws him out. He grabs his hand and Flair throws Justice out, giving Flair the WWF Championship. We all thought we would see Flair and Hogan at Mania, the big dream match. Did not happen. We got Hogan and Justice instead as the main event. Ended with a huge shock return. The Ultimate Warrior, after several months of being gone, after being fired after SummerSlam's Melee, where he held Vince up for money, comes out to save the Warrior, or save Hogan from Papa Shango and Sid's attack at the end of the show. All the way through WrestleMania 8, Hogan was just unstoppable, and really, he is the attraction. Even though there's other people put on better matches, like no one will ever argue that Steamboat and Savage at WrestleMania 3 isn't the best match on the card, but that's not why people paid their ticket money. They paid for Hogan Andre. Even when you go forward, so you go from WrestleMania 8. WrestleMania 8 is where we see, Bret Hart really starts getting put on the map by Roddy Piper winning the Intercontinental title. You see the Savage Flair match for the World Championship over the summer. The Warrior gets involved in the world title picture again. You see Savage lose the championship back to Flair. And then Vince decides he needs a new superstar. He puts the championship on Bret Hart. Ric Flair ends up leaving the territory. Bret Hart goes into a feud with Yokozuna after the Royal Rumble, heading into Mania 9, and Hogan decides to come back. He went off to film some things. For those who are fans of his old stuff, I thought Rocky 3 obviously is a fantastic movie, but not much of a role there. I actually thought No Holds Barred was pretty good for what it was. Suburban Commando, Mr. Nanny, he's doing films, comes back, forms the Mega Maniacs with Brutus Beefcake to take on Money Inc. at WrestleMania 9. We get that shock finish to WrestleMania 9 where Bret Hart loses the championship to Yokozuna and Hogan comes out and Bret Hart sends him into the ring to accept a challenge on the spot for the World Championship where he regains the WWF title. Goes to the first King of the Ring pay-per-view, not first King of the Ring, but first King of the Ring pay-per-view, and loses the championship back to Yokozuna, and he is out of WWE. Transitions back into film, Thunder in Paradise, doing a whole lot of things like that, and eventually will find his way into WCW. They do the whole ticker tape parade where he signs his contract, gets a match with Flair to start, kind of messed up if you think about it, no record in WCW, but you get a world title match right away. Shaq in attendance wins the WCW championship. And look, I could go on and on and on all day long about how this progresses. You all know. Whether it's the number of times he wins the WCW title, the formation of the NWO, which is groundbreaking and changes the wrestling business forever. Whether it's, and go through the litany of things that Hogan's done in this career. I sat at the Philadelphia Spectrum on closed circuit television watching WrestleMania 1. I watched that match. I want to say in person, but you understand what I'm saying. There was a live element to the feel. I've met Hulk Hogan. I was at SummerSlam the year that he faced Earthquake, and I went to the Marriott Hotel. First time I got to meet him face to face. He came in, he told us he needed to go upstairs to his hotel room and say goodnight to his kids, and he would come back and sign autographs. I kid you not, he left. My dad was like, he's not coming back. 20 minutes later, he came back down that elevator. He came out and he signed autographs for every single kid in the lobby, along with Brutus Beefcake, who was out due to injury at the time, who had blonde hair at the time, who also signed autographs for everybody. Really personable, welcoming guy. I was fortunate enough to fan out every time there was a big moment. X8 when he faced The Rock, one of the most iconic moments in wrestling history. WrestleMania 21 when he saves Eugene from Muhammad Hassan. I had my buddy, and I'm going to give him a shout out in this episode because I actually suspect he may tune into this because of what we're talking about. My buddy Mark, who was in my living room watching WrestleMania wearing his button-up polo shirt for the job we worked at the time, who literally ripped the buttons off his shirt watching Hogan come out to save Eugene because we were so excited about the return of Hulk Hogan going into the ring, cleaning house, leading to that match over the summer with Shawn Michaels, which there's a whole lot of conversation about. Don't want to go down any of those roads right now, but just saying. You see the Legend Killer match with Randy Orton. Solid stuff to me. The emergence of the NWO and WWE was solid, in my opinion, when Hogan and Nash and Hall first came in. Went to crap afterwards, but that's not Hogan's fault. Seeing him win the championship off of Triple H at Backlash, very exciting for me. I was shocked when Brock Lesnar defeated him with a bear hug of all things, and he was bleeding from the mouth and then just went away. Through the Mr. America period of time where he came in dressed in like the mask and everything. Like, there's been so many things that I've gotten to witness. I was in the Liacouras Center for Hulk Hogan's last match against Sting for TNA Wrestling. And, and I was there with, again, a shout out to one of my good friends, Randy, who was there with me. We won free tickets on a radio call-in thing. We went there. We got VIP tickets. We were sitting 2 rows over from Kurt Angle's wife and kids and other VPs that were there. I believe Terry Taylor was there at the time. All these guys were there, and it was like I was like fanning out because there were as many people sitting in the seats beside us because they only sold out one half of the arena. But I got to see that. It was always a special memory for me because I got to spend time with one of my buddies, Randy, who I didn't even think was a huge wrestling fan at the time. And now, knowing what I know, that was Hulk Hogan's last match, I got to share that moment with someone who's a very special friend of mine. All that, and look, do we really want to talk about all the other stuff? Look, Hogan knows best. Probably wasn't a good idea for him and his family. His son's issues with the car accident, his horrible divorce situation, the tape being leaked that never should have been leaked in terms of his private adult life, in terms of the verbiage he used in one of the tapes. I will never, ever condone, justify, or pardon the use of certain words. I've always said, if you're going to say those things in your private life, you'll slip up and say them in your public life. If you just never say ignorant stuff in your private life, you don't have to worry about if people are taping you or not. Should never have come out. Does it tarnish his legacy? Probably. Does all his constant embellishing and telling stories, does that tarnish the legacy? Maybe some. Him getting booed out of the arena at the Netflix premiere, the last time we got to see him in anything WWE related, he gets booed out of the building. Is that going to affect it? Probably a little bit. I was thrilled to hear he was announcing Real American Freestyle Wrestling. I was really excited to see him back into some kind of promotion of some kind, doing something of substance. I really was. All that, and that's what is that? That's about 24 minutes of me running my mouth. To come back to this, Hulk Hogan is the reason I'm on this podcast right now. It doesn't matter that there was a Dusty Rhodes, that there was a Superstar Billy Graham or Bruno Sammartino. Those people didn't bring my dad into the business the way Hulk Hogan did. Those people didn't get my dad to bring me down to the spectrum. It doesn't matter if after Hulk Hogan there was a Macho Man Randy Savage, a Ricky Steamboat, a Ric Flair. Ric Flair was around before Hogan, but never attained the level of success and fame and crossover appeal that Hulk Hogan did until recently. Let's be honest, Ric Flair being Ric Flair, who he is now, is much more recent. It's not something that was there the whole time. The other thing, too, is if you think about it, he is the one who really, I get it, there's been wrestlers all through the 60s and 70s who transition in the film, but he is the guy who really opens the door for people like The Rock and John Cena and Batista to go into Hollywood. There is so much in the wrestling industry that is here directly as a result of the efforts of Hulk Hogan. Period. I get it. Vince is the promoter, and I appreciate everything Vince did, even though he is a dirtball scumbag. Okay? I'm not here to justify Vince either. However, you cannot negate what happened in real time. In real time, in 1984, I lost my flipping mind January 23rd when I saw Hogan win. And in 1987, when I saw Andre throw the challenge down, I lost my mind all over again. When Hogan came out and accepted Yokozuna's challenge and won the title, we could look back at it now and talk about what a train wreck it was. In 1993, when that happened, that place, you watch the video, you show me people being upset about it. That place came unglued when Hulk Hogan won the World Championship. We could complain about it now, because hindsight's always 20/20. At that moment, we didn't know that Hogan was never going to do the favor for Bret Hart. We didn't know he was going to be there for a couple months, go over to New Japan, talk about New Japan's championship being more valuable and more important. We didn't know any of that stuff. What we knew was our real American hero had come back to the company and defeated this foreign invader, who oddly was Samoan and not a foreign invader, but whatever, had defeated this guy, brought the championship back to WWE. When Hogan went to WCW, lost my mind seeing him beat Ric Flair. When he turned and became the leader of the NWO, I was furious. My dad sitting in the living room telling me how he would have thrown paper balls and toilet paper at the ring himself if he was there. Starrcade against Sting, getting so irritated at what was supposed to be a fast count that made it look like Hogan beat Sting clean in like 4 minutes. And it turns out to be trash, and it kind of destroys all the momentum that WCW had. Watching Goldberg beat Hulk Hogan for the World Championship was particularly inspiring. I've rewatched that 1,000,000 times in my lifetime. Watching the end of Backlash with Triple H, watching the match with The Rock. I've watched that so many times I can't even begin to tell you. I am here because of Hulk Hogan. And for those of you who know me very well, there is not one day of my life that I am not touched or influenced in some way, shape, or form, whether it's be popping on YouTube and watching 1,000,000 videos or scrolling through the news of the day. Wrestling is something that is in my blood. It is inundated in my life. It has led to more memories than I could possibly share with you. It has led to very good things and very bad things, driving family members crazy when I make wrestling more important than other, familial things sometimes when I probably shouldn't. Wrestling is a part of who I am as a character, as a person. Give you a really personal story. In 8th grade, telling my father that I wanted to drop out of school to go become a professional wrestler, and him driving me to the Allentown Samoans training center and having Afa, Sika, and Captain Lou Albano straighten my head out about how I had to get my education first before I became a wrestler. I wanted to be a wrestler because of Hulk Hogan. And I did. I went back to school, and I finished high school, and went to college, and I'm now a doctor, and that was because of their advice, but I wouldn't have gotten their advice if I didn't become a fan because of Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan is why I have everything that I have in terms of fandom. In 2022, I had the distinct honor and pleasure to walk to the ring for the first time, being led to the ring by 3 of my favorite students I've ever had, bawling my eyes out inside and trying to suck it up on the outside, performing for my students in my school that I teach at, having a follow-up feud the following year, winning my first ever championship at the time, the Eisenhower Heavyweight Championship, a championship named after the building that I work in. All this stuff, precious stuff that happened in my life, could not have happened without Hulk Hogan. I'll never forget Halloween Havoc, Sting versus Mick Foley, Cactus Jack, coal miner's glove on a pole match. I'm sitting on the entry aisle, and I reach over the barricade, and I grab the tag team championship from Barry Windham when he's walking to the ring that night. And I tried to grab the world championship from Masachono, and if you watch the video, I'm the guy in the green Penridge, green and white Letterman jacket with a New Station Pizza hat on who tries to grab his belt. I get a nice little camera shot in there. When you watch the episode of Nitro where Nash and Hogan are almost coming to blows, I'm holding a poster up in Philadelphia that says NWO, Nash's World Order. Doug Dillinger took my poster from me 30 seconds after it was spotlighted on Nitro. I was there in New York City for Monday Night Raw to watch the 1-2-3 Kid beat Razor Ramon. And when they do that, if you look up in the crowd, at one point there's this kid in a Bret Hart pink and white shirt with a camouflage military vest on. That's me. Me fanning out. And guess what? All of those things I just said couldn't happen without Hulk Hogan. My son, when he would get excited to see his dad get excited whenever there's a big pop in the crowd, I share it with my kid. My daughters at different times being so excited to share wrestling related conversation with me. Even my wife, who's not the biggest wrestling fan in the world, knows what this sport means to me, all because Hulk Hogan basically introduced me to it. So on a day where many shows are going to talk about the specifics behind his untimely passing, on a day where people are going to either go completely over the top telling you how much they love him, or go the other way and talk about how much they dislike the guy, or why they're mixed emotions, or any of that. I can't do any of that. I can only talk about one thing. My opinion. My perspective. My perspective is there would be no professional wrestling in its current form without this man. There would be no major superstars in Hollywood the way we have them without this man. There would be no WrestleMania now if we didn't have this man, or any other pay-per-view. There would be no AEW. There would be no TNA. There would be no NXT. The NWA would have eventually gone away and folded. They were losing money hand over fist anyways. All of it eventually would have dwindled. Vern Gagne would have gone away. World Class would have gone away. They all would have gone away. And people go, oh, Vince killed the territory system. No, he didn't. People, hating on wrestling because they didn't understand how it works is what was killing wrestling. It took somebody with the personality to drive the fans back into the arenas, to bring people in and to draw them into the storylines, and to be able to share the energy with the crowd, to flex and pose after every match, to tell you to train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and eventually tell you to believe in yourself. To get squashed by earthquake on the set of the Brother Love show and have little kids, millions of them, sending in cards and letters to Hulk Hogan asking him to get better, not knowing that it was a kayfabe injury because kids didn't know what kayfabe was. All that stuff couldn't happen for people like me without Hulk Hogan. So listen, we have lost some incredible superstars over the years, and many of them have hit me like a ton of bricks. Nothing hit me like this. He was born on August 10th. My mother was born August 9th, same year, 1953. So oddly, my mom always appreciated Hulk Hogan, and that was one of the reasons why she used to joke she was one day older than Hulk Hogan. It made it special to me. It's just there's all these little things that made Hulk Hogan very special to me. Again, not excusing anything that he did that was controversial. I'm not a judge. I'm not going to say I'm the most spiritual person in the world, but I have never thought it was my job to judge people. I'm supposed to care about all people, and that's the way I feel. I care about the fact that I think the man brought more positivity in the world than he took negativity and brought that into the world. I really do. Does it tip the scales? Was he ever genuine in some of his apologies about certain things? I don't know. I wasn't there. But many people think he wasn't. Great. Hold that. You are justified in feeling any way you feel. But for me, I can only speak to my experience. My life has been better because of Hulk Hogan. As silly as that sounds, I'm a fan. Just like many of you, I'm a fan. And I am who I am. I love what I love. I have a passion for this business. I walk into a ring whenever I get the chance because of this man. So, unlike many other episodes that I've done, this one is not going to, be led into a whole bunch of like the news of the day and other stuff. This is the only story we're talking about. I felt the need to put this out as early as I could. Quite frankly, I didn't put it up earlier in the day because I was honestly too emotional to do so. I drove home from my job today and was very emotional driving home. I had many friends texting me, asking me if I was all right, asking me if I was going to be doing this episode, just checking in on me, which I appreciate. Every one of them, if any of them listen to this, I appreciate you. I do. I love that you care enough to check in on me and realize that tells me that you know what this business means to me as an individual. All the wrestlers I've met in my lifetime, again, wouldn't have met any of them if it wasn't for the influence of Hulk Hogan. And one last thing before I wrap this up. When you look at Hulk Hogan, you want to wonder whether you should be, how you should feel about his passing. Think about the people who are posting about him right now. Ric Flair, one of the earliest posts, talking about how long they've been together and him being by his side through his medical struggles. Charlotte Flair also sharing her condolences. Triple H put something out right away And it was a very classy way to respond. Brutus Beefcake, Ed Leslie, the guy who on camera we often thought was real life brothers, turns out they were just good friends. They actually have had a strained relationship the last several years. Even he, putting out a very compassionate and very heartfelt message to Hulk Hogan. The Undertaker, who by no means is the biggest fan because he doesn't always like everything that he did, also said his contributions to the business are immeasurable, and for that he's appreciative. Thank you, Hulk Hogan. When you look at other people, Kane was out today, The Miz, Matt Hardy, John Cena, people, the nameless Sting, Tony Schiavone. I'll be honest with you, he admitted that they were never friends, but that he definitely had a massive impact on the industry. Christopher Daniels, Adam Pearce, it's like a who's who of talent. And that's just the ones that I know of from earlier today. Prior to me recording this episode, there's probably thousands of more since. I was on Facebook. I saw people like Sean Stasiak, very emotional about it. I saw Typhoon, or whatever you want to call him, Tugboat, whatever. Fred Ottman, who I'm friends with on Facebook. Thank you for the ad, by the way. I saw him very emotional about it. This is a real situation that is affecting a lot of people who are fans of the industry. And I'm tired of hearing just about, the industry wouldn't be the same, and we have a... It's more than that. It's the emotion. He brought us our passion. He gave us a way to love this. Even if you were an NWA person back in the day, and WWF was like the rival territory, right? I get all that. But the NWA was never going to be what WWE is, because they didn't promote like that. Again, no matter how you cut it, the WWF, and by proxy Hulk Hogan's influence in the WWF, is why we're all here right now. So that being said, peace, love, and prayers. Rest in peace, brother. We love you, Hulk Hogan, and hopefully you're in a better place, and our condolences and sincere emotional well wishes to his entire family, his children, grandkids, all that stuff. So that's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode. We'll run down the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks to Suno AI for generating the music or sound that I use in our show. Today's show is sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bring a new friend to family game night. It's easy with Sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this game from Beazle Games by going to thegamecrafter.com and picking up your copy today. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college, university life, or you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Dr. Fro. I want to thank you for taking some time with us today. I cannot believe I just got through this episode without breaking down like a crying little baby. It has been tough. I'll be honest. I had to pause it a couple times. I don't know if you could tell. I had to pause it a couple times because it was really getting to me. But hopefully we'll see you in your next episode. Until then, have a great night.